Hi, everybody. Mrs. Tavarro here, aka Rockin' Librarian, and this is lesson 2 of Black History Month. And I'm really excited to share this person with you. Her name is Amanda Gorman. I actually just learned about her recently, and she is she's a poet from Harvard graduate, and she says she's the future president of the United States, that she's going to be running in 2036. She's 22 years old. And she's the first baccalaureate. Let's see if I have that on a card here. She's the first National Youth Laureate. So that's kind of exciting that she won over the whole nation for being the best poet, youth poet. So that's really exciting. So you're going to be, again, exposed to a variety of literature. You're going to use context clues to identify and support new vocabulary words. And you're really going to use this poem to compare the text, the poem, to yourself and the world around us. And you're going to make some inferences of what the poet is trying to tell us. So as you click around the classroom, you might see some additional things you can look at yourself. Under the presidential seal, Amanda Gorman has an interview with Ellen DeGeneres, and she talks about her difficulties with her speech and her speech impediment and how she's overcome that, and that she wants to run for president in 2036. So right here, if you click on this book, Chain Sings, I have it linked to Goodreads. Now, Goodreads is always a good place to find out a little bit more about a book, get a little bit of a summary here, how other people are rating it, to see if that's something you want to read. On the Bitmoji Classroom, you'll see here's the tiny URL to get to this yourself, https://tinyurl.com/Tavarro Amanda Gorman. And you see here in step 3, I want you to do some pre-reading questions. And so if you're 4th grade, face-to-face, click here, 5th, face-to-face, 4th owls, and 5th owls. And after your pre-reading, you're going to share a few of your pre-reading responses with one another, and then a few out loud. Then you'll watch the lesson. It will be linked here. And then you might have time to check out these 2 additional links. So the pre-reading, let's go ahead and click on that. What I want you to do for the pre-reading is, 1, first click on the plus sign. That's up here on the left-hand corner to add a page. And you can, if you have a picture on your computer, you can add a picture like I did, that's fine. And the questions that then you want you to type your name and the school you attend. You can also put your teacher's name on there. And you're going to answer, what are some negatives to the pandemic, COVID-19? What are some negative things that have changed that hurt us in a way? What are some negative changes that happen because of the pandemic? Then I want you to answer, what has been some positives of the pandemic? In my life, I've had lots of positives. I'm going to share mine in a moment. And then when this is all over and we're all vaccinated and things are kind of starting to go back to normal, what do you want to stay the same? So some changes that happen, are there any you want to stay the same? See, here are my answers. So I said in the beginning of COVID-19, the negative was the isolation. I felt so alone in a way. I couldn't hug my students or see my friends. It was really hard to find items at the supermarket. Do you remember in the beginning how shelves were empty, especially things like toilet paper? So those were some negatives I felt because of COVID. The second thing was some positives. It turned out there was more positives than negative, in my opinion. As a family, so far, all of us have stayed healthy, so nobody has really been harmed by COVID in my family. So that's a positive. I've had an amazing time with my 3 children. We were able to move school to be anywhere. We learned to give alone time during parts of the day in the house we live in, which is pretty small, but at other times we were all together. We were always here for each other. I got to help my children in their classes because they're both virtual as well. And Number 3 was what I want to kind of keep the same. Well, I really love the additional family time. I hope that continues. That is one thing I don't want to change. And the second is the less running around, getting from different practices in school. I mean, right now, I've been working from home, but when I was working in Cold Harbor, that's an hour a day in a car that I don't have anymore. So it's a lot less running around. And of course, also, less practices. My daughter's not swimming anymore. So just a lot of family time and a lot less running around. Go ahead and share some of the things you wrote. Go ahead and take the time to click on the link and type in answer those 3 questions. Then pause the video and share with your elbow partner and share a few out loud. So the first time I read it, I'm just going to read it straight through. I'm not going to tell you any vocabulary that we might come across or questions I'm going to ask. I'm just going to read it one time to hear the words. The Miracle of Mourning by Amanda Gorman. I thought I'd awaken to a world in mourning, heavy clouds crowding, a society storming. But there's something different on this golden morning, something magical in the sunlight, wide and warming. I see a dad with a stroller taking a jog. Across the street, a bright-eyed girl chases her dog. A grandma on the porch fingers her rosaries. She grins as her young neighbor brings her groceries. While we might feel small, separate, and all alone, our people have never been more closely tethered. The question isn't if we will weather this unknown, but how will we weather this unknown together? So on this meaningful morn, we mourn and we mend. Like light, we can't be broken, even when we bend. As one, we will defeat both despair and disease. We stand with healthcare heroes and all employees. With family and libraries, schools, waiters, artists, businesses, restaurants, and hospitals hit hardest. We ignite, not in a light, but in lack of. For it is in loss that we truly learn to love. In this chaos, we will discover clarity. In suffering, we must find solidarity. For it's our grief that gives us our gratitude, shows us how to find hope if we ever lose it. So ensure that this ache wasn't endured in vain. Do not ignore the pain. Give it purpose. Use it. Read children's books, dance alone to DJ music. Know this difference will make our hearts grow fonder. From a wave of woes, our world will emerge stronger. We'll observe how the burdens braved by humankind are also the moments that makes us humankind. Let every dawn find us courageous, brought closer, heeding the light before the fight is over. When this ends, we'll smile sweetly, finally seeing in testing times we became the best of beings. So we kind of have an idea of what A Miracle Mourning Amanda Gorman is talking about, even just from hearing it once and our pre-reading strategies talking about the pandemic that has happened. So thinking about the pandemic, I want to first talk about the genre. This is poetry, and it's a type of poetry that could either be free verse or rhyming. Pause and think, yell out right now. Which one do you think it is? Free verse or rhyming? Okay, if you said rhyming, you're correct. It has words at the end that rhyme. And I'm going to show you a little further down that I highlighted those words to kind of give us an idea of what it's going to look like. So I highlighted the end words that rhyme. So morning, storming, morning, warming, jog, dog, jog, dog, jog, dog. Not sure that rhymes too well. Rosaries, groceries, rosaries, groceries. Tethered together, alone, unknown. Mend, bend. And you can say these with me. Disease, employees. Artist, hardest. Are you reading them with me? Thereof, love. Clarity, solidarity. So those are some of the words. Here's some more. Fonder, stronger. Humankind, kind. Closer, over. Seeing, beings. So it kind of gives us a good idea of the end rhyme. So this type of poetry is rhyming poetry. I also have some other questions here that we're going to be answering, but let's do some pre-reading vocabulary. Now that we heard it once, the word tethered, we're going to be looking for the word tethered, which I highlighted or underlined. I underlined these words we'll stop at and talk about as a reading in the stanza. So in stanza 3, we'll see the word tethered. Stanza 4, mourn, or mourning. Number 6, ignite and chaos. Isn't that a weird spelling of the word chaos? When I was young, your age, I always think it used to say chaos, but that word is chaos. And hearing out loud, you might know what that word means now. Solidarity. In stanza 7, vain. Stanza 8, fonder, and woe are some of the vocabulary words I'd like to talk about. So how many stanzas are in the poem, The Miracle of Mourning? Is this free verse or rhyming poem? In stanza 1, we'll answer the questions. Why is the world in mourning right now? Why are we sad right now? What does the figurative language heavy clouds crowding means? We'll discuss that. What is heavy in our lives right now? And you might have some answers already for these. Stanza 3, how has your family weathered this storm? Okay, another figurative language. What is the poet's purpose? Right? What's the purpose of this poem? In stanza 9, what does the poet mean? In testing times, we become the best of beings. Beings meaning human beings, right? In stanza 4, like light, we can't be broken even when we bend. In what ways have we bent as society this year? What ways have we changed or adapted to these times? And in stanza 8, the poet, Amanda Gorman, is doing what here? What is she saying in that stanza? And of course, after reading the poem and really focusing on stanza 9, share a kindness you observed during these times. So let's go ahead and read it again now that the words are highlighted, and we'll stop and talk a little bit about it. The Miracle of Mourning by Amanda Gorman. I thought I'd awaken to a world in mourning, heavy clouds crowding, a society storming. But there's something different on this golden morning, something magical in the air, wide and warming. Of course, that's stanza 1, right? Heavy clouds crowding. What's starting to crowd around society? Yell it out. If you said this COVID is this pandemic, that's what that figurative language is talking about. It's not talking about heavy clouds above us, right? It's all the weight of all this pandemic happening to us. And when it says, you see the word morning and then morning, this one means like in the morning, when you wake up, right? But this one's when you're sad and you're mourning a loss of something. And I think as a society, we have lost a lot this year. So I thought I'd waken to a world in mourning, heavy clouds crowding, a society storming. But there's something different in this golden morning, something magical in the air, wide and warming. I see a dad with a stroller taking a jog. Across the street, a bright-eyed girl chases her dog. A grandma on a porch swing fingers her rosaries. She grins as a younger neighbor brings her groceries. So what's something positive do you see in stanza 2? Yeah, maybe that the young neighbor is helping the grandma. Has anybody you known helped somebody else get their groceries, maybe because they're older and they didn't want to go to the supermarket? Stanza 3. While we might feel small, separate, all alone. Our people have never been more closely tethered. The question isn't if we will weather this unknown, but how we will weather this unknown together. And of course, who's we? I have that in bright yellow. Right, we meaning all of us, right? While we might feel small, separate, and alone, our people have never been more closely tethered. Does anybody know what the word tethered mean? Go ahead and pause and discuss. Yeah, tethered is kind of bringing us together, tying us together. Our people have never been more closely tied together, tethered. Stanza 4. So on this meaningful mourn, we mend. Like light, we cannot be broken, even when we bend. Now, have we bent this year? Have we changed some rules? Have we made some adjustments? Have we bent? Yeah, we have. Can you name a few ways that we've changed? Go ahead, pause and discuss. Yeah, maybe some good. Maybe some of your answers were we had to change how school was run. A lot of us are now virtual, some were in person, and even if you're in person, you're kind of away from everybody, kind of separate, 3 feet or 6 feet away from each other. The way we go to the supermarket has changed. We have to wear masks and be careful and wash our hands even more so. Stanza 5. As one, we will defeat our despair and disease. We stand with healthcare heroes and all employees, with families, libraries, school waiter, artists, businesses, restaurants, and hospitals hit hardest. We ignite, not in the light, but in the lack of. For it is in loss that we truly learn to love. In this chaos, we will discover clarity. In suffering, we must find solidarity. So you see chaos and solidarity underlined. I think those might be some new vocabulary words for you. So if you want to pause and discuss them and then push play. So chaos, you might say, is like everything kind of going on all at once around us and we just don't know where to turn. It's chaotic. So in this chaos, we discover clarity. In suffering, we must find solidarity. That word is a great word. It's kind of like coming together as one, figuring it out together as a society, coming together. Stanza 7. For it's our grief that gives us our I wanted to go back to something else in stanza 6. For it is in loss that we truly learn to love. This year, maybe you lost something that you can't do anymore. Maybe you can't play your sport or can't go see grandma as much. Or I know I really lost all the hugs you guys always gave me in the classroom. And sometimes when we take something for granted, we kind of expect it every day. We realize we truly learn to love and appreciate that. And hopefully, when things are all better in our world, those things come back and we truly appreciate and learn to love those things that were taken away from us. So stanza 6. We ignite not in light, but in lack of thereof. For it is in loss that we truly learn to love. In this chaos, we will discover clarity. In suffering, we must find solidarity. For it's our grief that gives us gratitude, shows us how to find hope if we ever lose it. So ensure that this ache wasn't endured in vain. Do not ignore the pain. Give it purpose. Use it. Stanza 8. Read children's books, dance alone to DJ music. Know that this distance will make our hearts grow fonder. From a wave of woes, our world will emerge stronger. So one of the questions I asked you above was, what is the author's purpose in stanza 8? What is she kind of telling us to do right now during this pandemic when we're at home? Let's read it again. Read children's books, dance alone to DJ music. Know that this distance will make our hearts grow fonder. From a wave of woes, our world will emerge stronger. Go ahead and pause and discuss. So you might have said that Amanda Gordon is kind of telling us, give some time to yourself. Be a little silly and dance to music, or take some time to read some books maybe you haven't had time to read, because we will get back together. We will emerge stronger when this pandemic is over. I love Amanda Gordon's words. It's so powerful. Stanza 9. We'll observe how burden braved by humankind are also the moments that make us humankind. Let every dawn find us courageous, brought closer, heeding the light before the fight is over. Because the fight's not over yet, is it? It's not over. We're getting there. When this ends, we'll smile sweetly, finally seeing in testing times we became the best of beings, the best of humans, right? So one of the questions I asked was, in stanza 9, and after reading the whole poem, in testing times we became the best of beings. What are some things that you saw around you, at your house, in your home, maybe even on TV, of some of the great things that have come out of this pandemic? What is a kind thing you saw people do that maybe you never saw before? Go ahead and discuss with your elbow partner, and push play and share some, of course, out loud. Like I told you before, poetry takes multiple readings to let it finally start to sink in. We all know this poem Amanda Gorman wrote about the pandemic happening, and that there were some positives that were in the poem. And of course, the author's purpose was to entertain us, but also to give us a little bit of hope and courage of the good things that came out and that we saw during the pandemic. So now what you're going to do is, you see on the Bitmoji Classroom that it says the Miracle of Mourning words, right? And underneath it, it says the Miracle of Mourning by Amanda Gorman, performed by Amanda Gorman. So now you're actually going to see her performance, the energy she puts into it, and just the love of poetry she has. And remember, she had a speech impediment that she overcame. So you can't even detect it really in most of the poem in this one. So it's amazing. Enjoy it.